So in this first video looking at transformations, we'll be introducing the four main transformations used in maths, that being rotation, reflection, enlargement and translation, giving you some general advice and some help on some of the commonly used vocabulary in this particular topic. So there are four main transformations you can do to a shape in mathematics, and these are reflection. So this is where you're reflecting a shape using a mirror line or a line of reflection as it's sometimes called. Now this can sometimes get muddled up with symmetry, which is in itself similar to reflection but as a standalone topic, and sometimes with symmetry you can also have lines of symmetry as well as rotational symmetry, so it doesn't quite lie with transformation as a standalone topic. We then look at rotation. This is where you're rotating a shape around a centre of rotation around a certain degree and direction. We're looking at enlargement. So this is where you're using a scale factor to make the shape bigger or smaller. And translation, and this is where you move a shape either horizontally, left or right, or vertically, up or down. And it's really important that you practice each of these four transformations and also start to recognize when a shape has been reflected, when a shape has been rotated, when a shape has been enlarged, and when it has been translated. In some cases it's very obvious, but sometimes when it comes to rotation as well as reflection and translation, it sometimes can be a little bit confusing as to which one has been used, or maybe it could be both. Now moving on from this, in exams you will either be asked to perform a transformation on a shape or describe a transformation, and it's really important you look at how many marks are awarded, as this is a good indication as to how much information is required for you to give. In each transformation there are some simple questions and some complex questions, and at a high level that you may need to perform or describe a combination of transformations. So it is important you learn each transformation up to the level that you're working at. Now in terms of vocabulary, so vocabulary is used in transformation is really important and is worth a lot of marks. Each transformation when describing requires you not only to state which transformation it has been used, but particular information to fully describe the transformation, and I'll do a video that goes into this in great detail. Now when we're talking about, as we're going to be transforming shapes, you always start with an original shape, and this is what we call the object, and the transform shape, or the new shape that you probably have to draw, this is what we call the image. So it's really important that you read a question carefully, particularly when you are describing a transformation. When you have got what appears to be the object and image, a question might ask you to describe the transformation of the object to the image, or the image to the object, which would be the complete opposite. Now in terms of advice and prior knowledge going into the four transformations, as I said, I will do a separate video on each of those. Be sure to use a pencil and a ruler when performing any transformation. Lines must be straight and accurate to size and position. And what that basically means is make sure you're taking a bit of pride in your presentation of your answers. Don't think that the examiner or the marker or your teacher is not going to mind if you're, let's say, like a millimetre out, or your line doesn't quite go over the box. You will lose marks on this, and usually how they're marked in exams is you usually have an acetate or some tracing paper of the correct answer. They put that over your attempt, and if it matches up, brilliant, you get full marks, and if it doesn't, you'll lose marks. So they will check even for the millimetre, and obviously they do allow a little bit of margin of error, but you want to try and be as accurate as possible. Now the second point is make sure you're using common sense. As I always keep saying, to do well in maths it's about 65% knowledge, 35% common sense. So understand what each transformation is, and with every completed question look back and see if it looks right, and you'll kind of know when you go through practice of things that don't quite look right and things that could be passed off as the right answer. Now a good tip is excluding enlargements, your transform shape must be exact same size. So when you're dealing with rotation, reflection or translation, you shouldn't have altered the actual dimensions or the lengths of the side of the shape. It should be exactly the same. It may look different in terms of the orientation, but the actual shape itself should stay the same size. And then step 3 is be sure to be able to use tracing paper correctly. I would say you can use tracing paper, and tracing paper may be shown in your class or as a teacher or in different revision guides or different videos, but I would say tracing paper is really used for rotation. For all the other three transformations, particularly definitely not for enlargement, that tracing paper could be used, but I would say can be sometimes a bit of a hindrance, particularly when it comes to drawing the image as accurate as you can. And the last one, which refers to enlargements, is make sure you're able and comfortable with multiplying with fractions. And this really applies to higher level enlargements, which you might get asked to do depending on what paper you are doing.